Hello everybody, welcome to another 5-Minute Friday. We're going to continue on with our discussion of priority mode. Last week we talked about channel scanning and priority mode and changing those channels. Now we're going to get a little deeper into priority mode. This PowerPoint is actually one put together by the national resources that deal with radios, and you can find it on our Google Drive. It has a lot of other additional information that's really good to go over sometime. Maybe with your crew, you can throw it up on the TV, talk about it. It's good stuff. So what is priority scanning mode? Remember I said you kind of have what boils down to 4 different options. This PowerPoint's going to call it off, A, B, and C. There's different variations of how people report that, but this is kind of the most common one. And really what's important to get out of this is how you identify what mode you're currently in. So here it starts off with priority and scan turned off, and that's channel scan turned off. Does priority appear in the display? And that's that PR in the upper left hand corner, and it says scroll through all 16 channels, see if you see priority anywhere. If you don't see priority, slide the priority switch on. Does it display on the current channel? If not, priority is disabled. Okay. If it does, then it's priority mode A. So priority mode A is, the easiest way to think of it is, it's whatever the channel selector knob is on is going to be your priority channel when the priority toggle switch is flipped on. So when it's flipped on, whatever channel you're currently on the selector knob and that's showing on your display is your priority channel. It's not a halfway bad priority mode to be in. Keeps it really simple, easy to know where you're at. When you hit the transmit button, that's what you transmit out on. So what's our other option? Okay, so you scroll through all 16 channels, and then on one of those channels, you see priority, the PR in the upper left-hand corner. Then it says, turn it to a channel that does not display a priority. Does the display show the current knob selected channel? If yes, you're in priority mode B, and that's when you flip it on. So that means you've set it to a channel, but it doesn't revert to that channel when you flip the priority switch on. If it reverts to the channel, like we were on TAC 6 in our last video, turn the priority toggle switch on, then we moved to TAC 4, that's priority mode C. And that's a lot of people refer to as transmit on priority mode function. So that when you flip it up, it's going to move you to that channel, and then when you hit the push to talk button, you're still going to be on that priority channel transmitting out, even though your channel selector knob might be on a different channel. So just remember off. It can be on to whatever the channel selector knob is currently at. You can have it set to a current channel, but flipping the priority switch up won't take you to that channel. And then you can have it set where flipping the priority switch toggle on actually moves you to that channel and keeps you there regardless of wherever the channel selector knob is. Hopefully this PowerPoint slide made it a little bit clearer for you, but get your hands on it, mess with it, see how our radio is set up. Okay, now I'm going to show you another source of information, so stand by. Okay, welcome back. We have another little pocket guide put together by the same group. They have different pocket guides for different radios. This happens to be the one for the older style DPH. It's also kind of the one that's the most complicated and not as intuitive to get through. Tons of good information on here about cloning. If we zoom in here, we can see there's information that we went over on the last video about adding and subtracting channels from scan. And then I told you there are the 0 codes, okay? So you can see up here, let me circle it for you. They call it the Channel 0 Program Guide. So when you go in, and we'll go into the radio, I'll show you what it looks like and how you get into it. This is the first set of information you'll see that you can set. Deals with passwords, some digital stuff, the transmits at talk time, stuff that you're not really all that worried about until you get to the priority 1 and priority 2. So you can set priority 1 off. Okay, that's one of the settings. You can set it on, and when you see on, that means you're setting it to be that channel selector knob option. And then you can set it to a channel. Okay, and for priority 2, you can either set it off or on. I believe you might be able to set it to a channel too. We'll get into the radio and see. But that doesn't address the transmit on priority 1. That's actually, let me turn that off. That's actually handled down here in this set of codes. So you'll see 3 groups when we get into the radio. Each group will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some will be blinking, some won't. If it's blinking, remember, that means it's been turned on. And what I've done is I've highlighted up here my suggestions for how you have those radios set up, and which you'll commonly see a lot of radios set up too. So in this first group, you can see 3 is highlighted. That means I suggest you have that one on. That's your transmit on priority 1. So if that's enabled, when you flip the priority toggle switch up, it's going to move you to the priority channel that you set. If you don't like that, if you want to go to another priority setting, you can turn that off. The next set of group, we have 1, 3, and 5. 1 allows you to set a user code guard, which are the tones. That's super important because a lot of fires are now using tones. You need to have that ability to manipulate that. 3 is the busy channel indicator enabled. That's that light that we went over in one of the videos on tones, that yellow light to let you know that traffic is coming in on your radio. And then 5 deals with DTMF. I'm not going to get into that in this video. Then the last one I suggest you highlight or turn on 4 and 5. That's the backlight on key press, as opposed to display change, which would be 3. But 3 will eat through a lot of battery. 4 allows you to have the backlight come on when you hit a button, turn a channel selector knob so you can see where you're at, but not come on every time that you receive a transmission. That'll eat through your battery quite quick. And then the last one just deals with how the display shows up. You definitely want that enabled because it's letters instead of numbers. It makes it far easier. And then down here, we'll get a light option and then a group label. Okay, so let's actually get into the radio and I'll show you hand. Okay, and welcome back once again. We have one of the old DPH handheld radios. Let's go through the channels and see what we have really quickly. So let me go back to channel 1. We don't see priority, and we don't see scan on this channel, nor on this channel, nor in channel 3. But on channel 4, we see that we have priority recorded in the top left corner. Let's see if we can get that in focus. So channel 4, which is labeled crew, is our priority channel. Okay, so let's go into that programming menu and I'll show you the 0 programming menu. 6 zeros, or until it stops making sound if you're a simple man like me. If we wanted to get to any of the other channels, channel 1 through 16, and actually program in a receive or transmit frequency or tones, we'd use priority. And if I hit priority here, we'd go to channel 1, hit priority again, 2, and so forth and so on. Once you get to the channel you want to manipulate, you hit function to move through that channel's different features. So we're already on the 0 codes is what I'm calling, or the 0 programming menu. So we use function to move through it. Here's that password, which we saw was all 6 zeros. Oh, and before I move on, let me just mention that what we're doing in the 0 code really only applies to this group. It doesn't apply to the whole radio. That's something I thought it did for quite a while, until I realized when you're manipulating these 0 codes, you're manipulating it for the group that you entered in on. So in our case, it was group 25 is what we're on, and I'll show you that later. Anyways, that's the password here. That's a digital thing. That's how long you can hold down the push to talk button before the radio cuts out and won't let you transmit anymore. That's how long, when it picks up a frequency on a scanned channel, how long it will hold on that channel before it moves on and starts looking for transmission on another scanned channel. So picks something up on a scanned channel, the transmission stops, it will hold there for 2 seconds. Idea being that hopefully somebody responds within that 2 seconds, so you're hearing the full conversation before you move on, pick up another scanned channel, and lose what was happening on that channel. Okay, here's that priority 1, which we saw, I showed you, was on channel 4. So that all matches up. Let's scroll through and see what happens when we move through the different options, right? So now we're moving through all the different channels. There's the off status. So priority is now, for priority 1 is now set to off. You cannot set priority 1 on the display. In other words, in using the toggle switch would have no effect. On would be, priority is whatever the channel selector knob is on, is your priority 1. And now we're back to the channels. So I haven't hit entered on anything, so I didn't save any of my selections. So it's still, priority 1 is on channel 4. So you've noticed we haven't addressed the transmit on priority 1. So we've addressed mode A, which is just priority on the channel selector knob, And we've addressed mode B, which is setting it to a specific channel. We have to get to those groups before we can set the transmit on priority 1. Okay, so let's move through. Priority 2 is set to on, which I'll give you a second. That's right, that's whatever the channel selector knob is on. That's what that's telling us. So the way this is currently set up, priority 1 is on channel 4, and then whatever the channel selector knob is on is your second priority channel, and followed by any of the other scan channels. Whichever one comes up in the scan sequence next will get priority. So that's your 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's continue to move through. Okay, so here's where we're going to address transmit on priority 1. If you remember back to that sheet, having 3 blinking means that it's on, and 3 was the transmit on priority 1. So if we want to turn it off, we would hit 3, stops blinking. We have to confirm our selection by hitting enter. Okay, you can go back and you can see what these do by looking back at that sheet. 4 and 5 deal with backlight and alphanumeric display. Right now I have the light set to on just to make it easier for us to see during the video. You can see you can turn the light totally off, and then you can set how long it stays on depending on the selection you've made for how the light comes on. So I think earlier in the video I may have said that if you select it to key press, that turning something like the channel selector knob will actually cause the light to come on. It really only is key press. I just want to clarify if that is something I said. When it says key press, it really does mean that. So only pressing one of these keys will have it come on. That does limit the number of ways that you can get the display on, but your only other option is display change, which means every time it receives a transmission on one of the scan channels, that display is going to light up, and it will just eat through massive amounts of battery. So my suggestion would be to go to key press and then set it for a little longer. I usually set it to 6 seconds so that it actually makes it useful. Okay, now we're back out. Fortunately, you have to cycle the radio off and on. This is one of those things with these older radios. So let me prove to you there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Channel 4 is still our priority channel. And whatever the channel selector knob is on, which in this case it's channel 7, would be the priority 2. And just as a little side note, if you hit the pound button, that will show you which group number you're in. And if you hold down the pound button, it will tell you the group name. So GRFD, which was one of the last options we could change in the 0 programming menu. You saw GRFD pop up. You could actually clear that out and type a new group name if you wanted. Okay. So I showed you that channel 4, which in here is crew, is still the priority channel. Let's move off of channel 4. So now we're on channel 6. Toggle switches down. Recall back to how I set the transmit on priority 1 feature, which was number 3 in that first group. When I flip up this priority toggle switch, what's going to happen? Okay, so I'll give you a second, think about it. Let's see if you got it right. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we saw priority come on. This scan comes on because remember, priority is a scan function. But priority came up, but we didn't move to channel 4. That's because I disabled 3 in that group 1 selection transmit on priority 1. If I turn off the toggle switch and I move back through all the channels, I see that channel 4 crew has priority on it. So we know that priority has been set to a specific channel. If I had set priority 1 to on, which is only what the channel selector knob is on will be your priority channel, we actually wouldn't see priority here with the toggle switch off. We wouldn't see priority on any channel, remember. However, if I turn the toggle switch back on, not only would we see priority on this channel, but we'd see priority on all the other channels. So it's kind of a combination of both. When it's off, you don't see priority anywhere, which in this case we do. So we know that it can't be just the on setting, but let's just imagine that that priority is not there. And then when you flip priority up, you see priority on every channel, letting you know that priority is still on. It's not in the off setting. So take that in. You may need to rewind that a little bit or go back to that chart, but that's how you determine the status of that priority switch. Okay, and just to show you again, priority is on channel 4. So I hope that cleared that up. I put links down in the description to both that PowerPoint and those pocket cards that you could print out if you'd like, or save on your phone, which is what I'd recommend. Both great resources to have, lots of information there. Go through them. The PowerPoint's a little dry if you're not totally into it, and it has, it's probably 95 applicable to even the newer radios, because it talks about tones and repeaters and best antenna placement and how they work and that kind of stuff. So again, if you're not really into it, it might be a tad dry, but there's a ton of information in there. So get into those resources, get into these radios, play with the priority settings. And I will say, if you are knowledgeable about these radios and you want to be as efficient as possible, you will start to manipulate the settings in the zero programming menu, especially as it relates to the priority switch and your backlight, to make it work the best for you. And remember, with these rechargeable batteries, you might be able to get away with changing that backlight setting to one where the backlight comes on more often, for example, because these batteries last so much longer. And these radios were actually quite efficient with battery power to begin with. The newer radios are actually worse. They have fewer batteries and they eat through it much quicker. It's just kind of, we got a lot more function out of it, but we lost some battery time. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And thanks for watching another 5 Minute Friday.